People have asked me to cover Bryan Johnson's crazy supplement regimen for a long time now, and I decided to look at it in detail and see what makes sense and what doesn't. And speaking of not making sense, it's regimen, not regime. I often see videos talking about a supplement regime, but a regime is a crackpot government run by tyrants and cronies.
He's right. Do you know that?
Just a word to the wise for all the health influencers who don't read and speak English so good, as Zoolander might say. On the other hand, a regimen is a course of tasks followed with military discipline.
Jump, 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 and rest. What are you doing, man? I'm resting, it's going all grey. That's the pain barrier, beat it. You're right, you're absolutely right. Keep it going, and rest. Brilliant, that extra little bit, that's what it's all about.
While Bryan Johnson claims he's following his regimen for life extension, a skeptic would say that it is much more likely he's just doing all of this to sell his own supplements. You can take 100 to 200 pills and capsules and spend $20 a day, or you can just give him $10 a day and get all the same benefits in a convenient package. Some special vitamin powder and some magical extra virgin olive oil.
Look at them. Don't they know that I don't know what I'm talking about? How long is it before I'm finally found out? When is someone going to expose me for the fraud that I am?
First off, happy Thanksgiving, everyone. It's always been a favorite holiday of mine, even though it was basically made up during the Civil War, and it's not really based on history. A big turkey leg with plenty of fatty skin is a wonderful meal. And remember that gravy is full of nutrients and is very healthy, so don't skimp on the gravy.
Oh, the gravy. Don't get me started on the gravy. Very difficult to get right. See, a lot of people give up on the gravy. You cannot give up on the gravy.
I also want to tell you that bulksupplements.com is having its annual Black Friday sale starting soon. This is their best sale of the year, and usually you get 15% off, and this applies to any size order. If you want to support the channel, then if you click on the affiliate links in the description, a percentage of the sale will go to the channel as well, and you'll still get the discount. Just make sure to enter the code that they provide at the time of checkout. All of the linked supplements are useful for metabolic health, or are shown to extend life in animal longevity studies, or both. They will also help a lot for any immune system issues, including post-viral syndrome, healing the body using your immune system, which is the only way anything heals, and so on. Not to mention weight loss for those having trouble losing weight, especially TMG, which is very good for the liver. They're the ones I think are useful for essentially everyone, and the ones that I give to my dogs, but there are also some special purpose supplements that might be helpful for particular purposes. For example, magnesium hydroxide to make the toothpaste recipe, sea buckthorn berry for dry eye, beta-alanine and creatine, which are good not only for exercise performance, but also for general health, and much, much more. In fact, they have just about anything you can imagine in powder form. With that out of the way, I also want to get Bryan Johnson's use of medications for so-called longevity out of the way. These are a big mistake, to put it bluntly. While some medications can increase metabolic health, they do so at a cost. And if they were truly safe and effective, they would be available over the counter. Zeaxanthin and rapamycin will bork your immune system and make it impossible to put muscle on. Metformin affects your mitochondria in unpleasant ways that may cause more harm than good in the long term. And while acarbose will stop some starch from being metabolized, this is almost certainly going to have bad implications for both the liver and your gut microbiome. There's also a simple solution here. Don't eat so much starch if you're taking too much in. It also won't help with table sugar or corn syrup, which are even worse problems than the starch, so I really have to question what the point even is. And he also takes TRT, but again, this is expensive and it won't be an issue for most of the population, especially if they eat liver and meat and they're not morbidly obese, which causes big problems with your testosterone. So for goodness sake, don't think these very expensive medications are the answer to anything, let alone longevity. If anything, it's going to shorten your life. Ashwagandha is something he takes daily, but there's many issues here. Like all herbal supplements, especially from Asia, you need to worry about contaminants and pesticides. Of course, rice and wheat are absolutely full of arsenic in modern times, even if they're organic, but be careful about increasing your heavy metal content in your food and supplements by taking large amounts of herbals. Many people take ashwagandha for energy and others for relaxation, and some even to increase testosterone. It's marketed as an adaptogen, and while it may help certain people in certain circumstances, it seems to do little or nothing for most people. Ashwagandha can also have major side effects for some people, so it's hard to get behind something that only has benefits for a small group, but can also cause big problems for other people. Like many herbals, ashwagandha is also often fake or underdosed, so if you must try it, make sure to get a trustworthy brand found in a real health food store, not something off the net or from a big box corporate store. Also, make sure that any extracts are standardized to a particular percentage, because otherwise you can guarantee it's going to be somewhat weak. But if you aren't already taking it and one of the lucky ones who see benefits and no side effects, then it's probably not really worth the bother, especially if you're already taking lots of other supplements. Ginger has similar issues and therefore nothing to get overly excited about. In fact, I'll probably skip over most of his herbal supplements because many of the same issues apply, and ultimately there's just not enough juice to be worth the squeeze. So I wouldn't rule them out completely, but I wouldn't really go out of your way to look for herbal supplements. In case you didn't realize, Bryan Johnson seems to be a vegan, or at least someone who eats very little meat. That's probably why he looks so unhealthy. Though some of the unwarranted medications for quote-unquote longevity probably aren't helping any either. That's probably also why he worries about B vitamins so much. Someday I will make a dedicated video on B vitamins, but I have touched on it before a few times. The Cliff Notes is that a lower carb diet that's full of plenty of animal products will keep your gut from squandering B vitamins. Taking liver occasionally will give you a plethora of B vitamins, and also dozens of other nutrients. Importantly, it will also give them in the proportions that your body needs them in. Bryan Johnson does not seem to eat liver or meat, so in reality he would want to have B12 injections to avoid brain demyelination over time. Taking a B vitamin complex may be tempting, but this can unbalance your B vitamin levels, so if you are a vegan, just make sure that you have B12 injections regularly. Really, the only way to have proper B vitamin levels is to eat plenty of animal products, especially some liver from time to time, and avoid gut dysbiosis by avoiding excessive carb intake. I try to take liver weekly, but in reality I end up having it about once a month. I also feed it to my dogs, and that may be why they all live so long. So throw out your vitamin B bottles and eat some natural food. This won't work for everything in your body because you make less creatine, alpha-ketoglutarate, hyaluronic acid, and much more as you age. But this is the best solution when it comes to vitamins and minerals, especially when it comes to the all-important vitamin A that unethical or uninformed vegans have tried to paint as a poison instead of one of the most critical nutrients for human health and fertility. Johnson also takes Brocomax, which is one of the worst supplements imaginable. Broccoli is full of sulforaphane, which is an extremely potent carcinogen and genotoxin. This is promoted as a health food on the basis of a homeopathic response to these horrific toxins. Comically, the same people who mock homeopathy will line up in droves to poison themselves with sulforaphane from broccoli, including virtually all doctors. Almost all of them promote this stuff. The idea behind homeopathic medicine is that you take a tiny amount of a poison and the body responds by triggering its internal healing mechanisms to repair the body. This has some truth to it, but for substances like sulforaphane or resveratrol, even tiny amounts can cause significant damage to the body. Resveratrol does more harm than good relatively quickly, but even the tiniest levels of sulforaphane will cause DNA damage, which is always going to drive aging, not fix it. Now admittedly, sulforaphane is ephemeral and it dissipates very quickly, but you can also get these same kind of benefits from taking substances like bilberry, which don't have any chance to harm you whatsoever. Brocomax can also lower testosterone levels in men, which is even more reason to avoid it. Vitamin C is another vitamin he takes. In fact, the human body can't do much with vitamin C, and the only real need in the human body is for hydroxylating proline in the production of collagen. That is adding a hydroxyl group, which is basically a water molecule without one of the hydrogens attached. This process only requires tiny amounts of ascorbic acid, which it is now known that the body creates from DHAA, or dehydroascorbic acid, and that's something that very few animals can do. Meat is actually full of DHAA, more than enough for anyone's needs, so you don't really have to worry about vitamin C so long as you're taking meat. While the British sailors who survived on the seafaring age equivalent of saltines all got scurvy, the Northern European explorers never had this issue. That's likely because they ate salted or fermented fish instead of nutritionless wheat crackers. This was also mainly a problem in the rank and file, not in the officers, probably because the officers had much better rations. While Linus Pauling made a very big deal about vitamin C in his time, his ideas were based on outdated information and some outright lies. In reality, the human antioxidant system is incredibly advanced compared to any animal on Earth. And it simply does not use vitamin C as an antioxidant in the same way that animals and plants do. Virtually all animals produce large amounts of vitamin C directly and use this as an antioxidant, but humans simply don't need to do this because we have glutathione, uric acid, cholesterol, and many other less destructive antioxidants. Yes, cholesterol and uric acid are actually antioxidants. Alpha-ketoglutarate is another supplement he takes, and so far it's the only one he takes that I would take. The rest will do more harm than good for most people. Alpha-ketoglutarate is important for stem cell health and provides a source of energy for stem cells and for cells that are under stress. This helps a great deal with the visible effects of aging, and in mice it extends their lifespan quite a bit. More importantly for many, these mice also keep their hair until they pass on, and they also keep their hair color. That's because hair loss and hair color are both controlled by stem cells in the hair follicle, and as they deplete, so does your hair and hair color.
If you increase the number of stem cells in circulation, many studies have shown you can either improve or sometimes even reverse heart disease, Parkinson, Alzheimer's, atherosclerosis, diabetes, problems touching so many different aspects of human health. But I think that the greatest discovery in the field of stem cell research for you, because it touches every single one of you, is that yes, stem cells are the repair system of the body, but they are also the maintenance system of the body. When you are 60 years old, you don't have a 60-year-old liver, 60-year-old pancreas, or 60-year-old heart. Everything is constantly going to a process of tissue turnover. You have a new liver every 2-3 years, new skin every month, half of a new heart every 25 years. Turnover means you lose cells every day and you need to replace them in order to maintain organ function. That's the role of your stem cells. By age 30, you've lost 90% of them. Somewhere in your 30s, you discover you're not Superman, you're no longer Wonder Woman. From that day, you don't have enough stem cells to replace what is lost, and from that day on, you start to accumulate a deficit that will result years down the road into some sort of age-related diseases.
You can't get AKG in the diet, and you make less and less as you age, so it's a no-brainer for anyone on Earth to supplement this stuff if they can. I don't take calcium alpha-ketoglutarate, but instead I take AAKG or arginine alpha-ketoglutarate. The AKG in both is easily absorbed and will have the same effect in the body, so this is perfectly cromulent and will embiggen the health of your stem cells.
Biggins? Never heard that word before I moved to Springfield.
I don't know why. It's a perfectly cromulent word.
While flavonoids have a lot of health benefits, cocoa is a very toxic substance in the human body that leads to the creation of a large amount of oxalates. Dark chocolate is an oxalate nightmare and everyone should avoid it. Caffeine in cocoa is also a very harmful substance that raises the dreaded cortisol that people worry so much about and talk to me about every single day. They worry about it all day long while they're chugging down coffee and soda and scarfing down chocolate, and then they wonder why they have so many problems with weight loss and sleeping disorders. Processing can remove some of these issues in the flavonoid department, but it will also create new issues. It's much better to take bilberry powder than to take cocoa-based supplements, and it's even better to take bilberry powder than blueberry-based supplements because it has about 4 times as many of the active ingredients. Bilberry powder undergoes minimum processing and has more flavonoids and other healthy components than arguably any other edible plant source, though there are a few that most people don't really eat that are a little bit obscure. So you can skip the rest and simply go directly to the best. Dark chocolate and cocoa is always something to beware of.
Cocoa doing his thing.
Coenzyme Q10 is interesting in many ways, especially in that it's so heavily promoted by doctors and plant-based quote-unquote experts. Why is that? Now, CoQ10 is extremely important and it is needed for your heart to be able to contract properly, among other things. But it's important to understand that the main place we get it is in red meat, especially beef hearts and all the other muscles that also happen to contain taurine, such as oxtail and tongue and so on. And that's another vitally important nutrient for the mitochondria and for the heart. It's also important to realize the statins that doctors love to force down the throats of the elderly destroy CoQ10, and this is probably the main reason they promote it so heavily. That and the fact many influencer doctors sell their own brand. First they cause the problem, then they give you the solution. For a hefty price, of course. It's better to simply get this nutrient from meat, and anyone who eats it daily should not really need to supplement it. But if you're vegan, then you better supplement it if you don't want your heart to grow 3 sizes bigger this holiday season. Glucosamine is an interesting supplement. It is not generally believed to be absorbable by the body, but some people swear by it for joint pain. Interestingly, the real reason could be that glucosamine binds with lectins in the gut, and lectins are one of the main drivers of arthritis in the body. So while glucosamine may help Bryan Johnson and other vegans keep from having joint pain, the smartest option is simply not to eat all those lectins in the first place. Don't have lots and lots of nuts in the diet. Another interesting note is that the lactose from milk also binds with lectins, so this is just one more way that milk is very helpful to the body. And when you look at fructose and starch, it doesn't do that. So vegans are actually eating a much worse form of carbs than people who have dairy. People ask me that all the time and it gets annoying, but everything in milk is much more healthy for you than anything that's in plants. And lactose is also used by probiotic bacteria like L. reuteri and bifidobacterium. So the more you drink over time, the better your gut health is going to become, in spite of what all the crazy people say. So glucosamine may actually have some benefits, just not in the way that many people think. Since this stuff is generally harvested from contaminated marine sources, basically shark cartilage, this is still a supplement that is probably best to avoid. Supplements can sometimes be great for your health, but it's not worth taking them if they're highly polluted, and in this case they're almost always going to be. So on this one I have to give Bryan Johnson a solid F. There's just no excuse to promote glucosamine in this modern age when it's a well-known problem that everyone except for this guy seems to know about. He also takes an EPA supplement of some kind, maybe krill oil, I'm not sure about that. While we definitely need EPA and DHA for the brain, It is probably better to get it eating fish like herring and sardines. And it's also important to note that EPA does not convert to DHA, and that's the structural part of these omega-3s, or the main structural one. So you're just not going to get the DHA you need from any vegan source. We also get both EPA and DHA from grass-fed milk and from beef fat if it's grass-fed. Many mistakenly take it as an anti-inflammatory, but this is very misguided, which I'll get to in a bit. While some like Ray Peat will contend these fatty acids, being PUFAs, are bad for longevity and mitochondria, this is also untrue. Every fatty acid has unique effects within the body, but the real use of EPA and DHA is for the brain itself as a structural component. It's also needed in small amounts for all cell membranes, but consuming the huge amounts needed to see an anti-inflammatory effect makes the cell membranes too spongy and can cause issues like atrial fibrillation. Fish and krill supplements in oil form are also invariably oxidized, which means they first become liver fat when you eat them. This is not a problem in small quantities, but it will be when taking grams of supplements per day. All in all, it's much better to get this from fresh animal products instead, so you don't have the oxidation issue. And even if there is a little bit of oxidation and you can only take it in supplement form, that's still better than not getting it at all. And if you don't get it that way or through supplements, you're just not going to get it. Sorry, kale lovers.
You don't win friends with salad. You don't win friends with salad. You don't win friends with salad.
Hyaluronic acid is another good supplement he takes, one of the few so far. Hyaluronic acid has many benefits in the body for the gut, scars, wound healing, nerve growth, dry eye, and much more. I take 500 milligrams a day of hyaluronic acid, and after a while taking it, suddenly noticed my knees no longer creaked as I went up the stairs. So I'm convinced that it can also help with joint issues, which is another thing that's been listed. He also takes Nicotinimide Riboside, and that's another supplement that is basically just there to boost your NAD+, just like NMN. The problem is that at the end of the day, these are just fancy and more expensive forms of niacin, in spite of the endless hype. All the same NAD+ boosting effects are seen for plain old niacin, and don't get fooled into thinking this is some wonder molecule. Better yet, you can just fast, which not only increases NAD+, but also reduces its counterpart NADH, which also is helpful for the metabolism of the cell, and it also leads to the CD38 enzyme in macrophages being switched off, and that means the NAD+ isn't consumed in the first place. Taurine is also shown to increase NAD+ in cells in animal experiments, and since it happens on a cellular level, it is pretty much guaranteed to work in all animals, humans too. He also takes Proferrin, which is a supplement containing heme iron and some B vitamins. Like the B vitamins, this is actually going to be harmful for most people, and he probably only takes it because he eats little or no meat. If you're a vegan, you may need to supplement heme iron, but otherwise your diet should be full of it, and excessive amounts could cause some issues, though heme iron is the very safest form, and the real problem is fortified iron in things like bread, which is usually iron oxide or elemental iron. Turmeric is very popular, but like sulforaphane, it also works via the hormetic effect. That is, this is a poison which can trigger the body's repair mechanisms. However, unlike sulforaphane, turmeric is not nearly as toxic and is also very difficult to absorb through the gut. So taking turmeric is a lot safer than taking a supplement like Bronchomax or resveratrol. Just be aware that it does not need to be absorbed in the gut to work its magic. If absorbed into the bloodstream in large amounts, it could actually be harmful. So avoid turmeric preparations that add piperidine. And if you have a very leaky gut, it is also probably best to avoid it. And while it may sound crazy, it's actually going to cause the microbiome to produce positive molecules that your body can use if you take the turmeric. But at any rate, I don't take it. And it does have some possible downsides, but it's still a reasonable supplement to take. So if you want to take it, I guess I'll allow it. He also takes taurine and NAC. Taurine is vitally important to the body and difficult to get in the modern diet because it's mainly in organs like the heart, small muscles like the tongue and tail, and other cuts of meat not found in steak and hamburger. NAC is used as a supplement because it provides L-cysteine. You can get plenty of cysteine by eating meat, but it has to be freed from methionine, and this drives up the toxic byproduct homocysteine. If you take NAC, or better yet L-cysteine, then it stops the creation of homocysteine, a toxic substance that causes cancer and heart disease. Your body can make taurine, though not in optimal amounts, and this also requires L-cysteine, which is why I lump these together. Over time you lose the ability to make taurine in the body, and the consequences of low taurine can be very dire. These supplements are both great to take because they have many benefits ranging from protein folding required for all protein synthesis to glutathione creation. They also both drive down homocysteine when you take them because your body creates less of these nutrients and therefore fewer byproducts are created. But you will get more bang for the buck by taking L-cysteine instead of NAC, which is a much more potent and less expensive supplement. Some people will tell me they can't get L-cysteine, but bulksupplements.com ships worldwide, so you can use it to get anything you want so long as it's legal in your country. And if NAC is legal, then L-cysteine is certainly going to be legal. And really, it's pretty ridiculous for either one of them to be illegal, so don't worry about that. They're not dangerous by any reasonable assessment. Garlic can have benefits as a supplement, but sourcing location matters, and it's probably better to either take aged garlic or take fresh garlic and crush it before taking it to release allicin. And just like all plant products, you're really better off just growing it yourself, and if you can't, just skip it unless there's some overriding need to take it. And how useful is it? Well, probably not amazingly so, but it can help with blood pressure and inflammation a bit, and a few other issues. I used to take aged garlic and may start again, but it is not a supplement that is all that vital to human health. It's mainly a special purpose kind of thing for people who are worried about their heart for the most part. He also takes lutein and zeaxanthin. Lutein and zeaxanthin are famed for their protective benefits for the eye. There's nothing bad about taking them, but you'll get much more bang for the buck by taking bilberry powder instead, or sea buckthorn berry for that matter. Vitamin A is also the most important thing that there is for the eye, and fasting and phototherapy will also help a great deal for preventing cataracts, and some have told me that they've even dissolved their cataracts that way. So if you worry about your eyes, they may help a little, but don't neglect other better options. And especially be sure to get real vitamin A in your diet. He also takes several other amino acids, but these can all be gotten very easily from the diet. They can be used for specific purposes when taken alone on an empty stomach, but this is a misguided way to try and use amino acids. The one he is really lacking is leucine, which is very low in a vegan diet. Adding this to a stack would be especially helpful for him. But instead he takes a lot of random nonsense aminos that no one really needs to supplement. He also takes a large amount of pea protein. Extra leucine would help his pea protein do something useful, but pea protein on its own is the worst protein supplement possible. Pea protein also causes great gastric distress and is insanely processed because peas only have tiny amounts of protein. That means the protein will be largely denatured, and this can lead to allergies and gastric problems. It also means that all the pesticides and arsenic and lead from these peas will be concentrated to much higher levels in the supplement, and you're just destroying entire fields of peas to get just a couple pounds of this pea protein, so it's highly wasteful. Of all the things he takes, this is the worst one, and it should be pulled from the market immediately. And in any sensible world it would be. For that matter, animal products will always be the best source of protein, and it will always be in the right proportions. And you really have no need to ever take a protein powder supplement. They're very expensive for what you get, and they're never as digestible as the food they're derived from. On the other hand, since leucine triggers protein synthesis, You might get some good results by supplementing this instead of protein powders. This is especially handy for those with reduced appetite or poor ability to digest nutrients, because just a few grams of leucine can boost the efficacy of your protein to such a degree that it's like you ate twice as much protein. Bryan Johnson also takes his own special brand of extra virgin olive oil, which is extremely expensive. Now, there is some argument in both directions that EVOO is good for you, but if it's fake, then it's definitely not going to be good for you. It's going to be full of toxic poisons because that's what processed seed oils are. Oleic acid is very anti-inflammatory, and this is probably the main benefit of EVOO, in spite of many other theories. The problem is it's also full of linoleic acid, which is toxic and leads to the creation of free radicals in the body, and this leads to aging. In this case, it mainly produces malondialdehyde. You can also get oleic acid from many animal products, especially chicken thighs and turkey thighs and legs. But keep in mind that chicken is often fed on feed that can also increase linoleic acid. But the real solution here is just move to beef, especially grass-fed beef. And lamb is even better because it's usually grazed in areas that have never been sprayed, and it's almost always grass-fed. Overall, this is the worst supplement stack that I've ever seen, and I've seen a lot of really pointless and boring supplement stacks that really had no thought put into them. But while this one actually does have a few good things like taurine, which is not even true of some of these stacks, it's mainly full of useless or even harmful substances, in spite of being pretty much the biggest supplement stack in human history. I skipped over quite a few items like vitamin D and K2, but essentially every supplement stack I see includes those, and everyone has talked about them ad nauseum. Though it is also a good idea to take zinc if you're a vegan, and Bryan Johnson does seem to do that. Even worse than the supplements are the medications. These are theoretical life extenders in animals, but so is taurine, alpha-ketoglutarate, and bilberry, just as a few examples. But these meds have extreme side effects, while the supplements have essentially none. He also uses a few supplements like creosote grease that are known to cause problems like kidney failure in humans. To be frank, his supplementation regimen is pure nonsense. It's misguided and appalling at best, and very venal attempt to scam people into buying expensive products at worst, and it would do so by showing a routine full of endless nonsense and then presenting a much simpler solution to the problem that he actually created. While Bryan Johnson has lowered some scores supposedly associated with aging, many of these scores are questionable, like telomeres. We now know healing comes mainly from stem cells, and that simply losing weight or having a small body size will grow telomeres. So in essence, telomeres are not a controlling factor in health at all. The main thing that measures aging is stem cell pool size and stem cell health. The only thing in his stack that's going to affect this much is the alpha-ketoglutarate. Everything else isn't going to do a thing for it. And the actual size of the pool does not seem to ever grow, only shrink with age. That's why once you're bald, you're just bald for good, and that's all there is to it. And that is the ultimate dictator, the true health regime, as it were, that controls your ultimate destiny and ultimately seals your fate.
Well, I don't like the sound of these here concentration bumps. He's right. Do you know that?
So save your money, don't buy a special herbal blend, and don't buy a special olive oil, and certainly don't try to replicate his insane supplement and medication regimen. He's not a scientist, but a charismatic and very successful businessman. He presents scant scientific backing for the extreme measures he takes in the name of life extension, and he speaks with persuasive but unwarranted conviction.
He's not just a person. He's a paradigm, a phenomenon. My concluding remarks are these. One day there'll be another, a superficial man, or woman, who cultivates enormous influence with smooth talking and a given set of credentials. Please cast a critical eye on him or her. That means, don't be sucked in by the confident or self-assured presentation. Don't be sucked in by his or her credentials and authoritative delivery. Look at the facts supporting the individual claims. If there is none, then dismiss the claims outright.